Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1317, written by Anonymous. The night the sky caught fire. This happened back in the mid-80s. My sister's ex-boyfriend and I, we were still on friendly terms as they shared a child, were driving home from San Bernardino. We were traveling west on Interstate 10. It was around 8:30 p.m. or so. We both noticed a really bright light, look sort of like flames, to our direct right. There were fields to our right. We felt a little rumble. Then we saw, both of us, although I was also driving so I had to be careful, a missile or something literally flying up into the sky from the ground. We weren't drunk or high. We were just surprised. We saw other people looking over to the right as well from their cars. 2 cars actually pulled off the freeway to the side. I was scared crapless. I told them to put it on one of the news stations and I told him to go try KFWB. He did, and he was in near tears. We seriously thought we were going to war or something. Finally, we put it on another station. We were still on the freeway. And we stopped on KIIS, and they were actually talking about it, but didn't have any specific details on it. Maybe a minute's worth of talking about it. We finally got home and busted in the house, telling everyone what we saw, and I turned on the TV to one of the main stations, hoping for a special report to break in. He went and turned on my stereo to the news station. Nothing. No reports other than the small snippet from the radio. We searched newspapers, watched news, and listened to news for the next week. Nothing. We both absolutely saw this, as did other people on the freeway, but nothing was ever spoken about it after that. Case notes for file 1317. The night the sky caught fire. You know what this reminded me of? Back in the day, I think it was 1930s, maybe 1940s. There was a radio broadcast, War of the Worlds, probably most people know about it, where there was a broadcast that was meant to be a joke. I think, was it a promotional material? Anyways, on the radio, they simulated an actual alien invasion, and people at the time didn't know it was a joke. They thought there was an actual alien invasion going on and the military was fighting against aliens. This has similar vibes, where maybe the radio station was doing some sort of prank, and they were corroborating whatever people were seeing, and maybe even there were other people involved with the radio station to jumble this together with lights in the sky. Maybe some kind of firework system that didn't explode and just sent a large streak across the sky. Something like that. Because if it was a real UFO incident, you would think there would be more reports. The other possibility is there were others, but they were suppressed by the government. Which they do tend to do that pretty often, don't they? So that could be possible too. Case file number 1318, written by Anon 98543423. A day of disquiet when reality unraveled. Recently, I had a strange experience which lasted a day. Throughout the day, I kept noticing little things out of place, or finding something in a spot I thought I had left somewhere else. This in of itself isn't too strange, happens to the best of us. But what got me was the frequency of my noticing various things being out of place. Then things started being knocked over or falling that shouldn't have been unstable. Like, I get it, if something is on the edge and a gust of wind blows it off a table or something, but these things were stable and shouldn't have fallen. Once it happens, it's weird. Twice, maybe a coincidence, but I think I counted 4 to 5 times something actually fell. In addition to objects being slightly moved or falling, I heard loud bangs and knocks in my house all day. Not knocks like the heater turning or pipes banging. It sounded like actual knuckles on drywall, sometimes just in the other room, other times farther away, or even on another floor. It was only my dog and I in the house that day, and I know it wasn't my dog who was moving or knocking stuff over or doing the knocking because he was with me, still a pupper, for pretty much all of it. And each time he'd look at me, so I know I wasn't just imagining the knocks. I should also mention I do not notice any knocks on a day-to-day basis. This is where it gets weird. I started getting weird visions, premonitions, that kept coming true. The visions felt like a memory that hadn't happened yet. I had about 5 to 6 of these. The most notable is probably when I saw a car drive into my driveway. It felt so real, I had to go check if there were any snow tracks that were still visible, which there weren't. Right when I went to pull away from the window, I heard a very loud revving engine speed all the way down the street. I knew what was going to happen. Sure enough, it spent up all the way into the driveway and pulled right in like they owned the place. They probably only sat there for 5 seconds, but it felt like forever. Then they just backed out and turned away. Coincidence? Maybe. But that doesn't explain how the other, admittedly less notable visions also came true. By this point, I had this very weird feeling deep in my gut. My dog was on edge too. Maybe it was just a negative feedback loop, us freaking each other out, but I felt more than that. Maybe it was just me, but the knocks felt like they were getting louder too, happening once every 15 to 20 minutes. I did multiple searches through every room of the house throughout the day and didn't find anything. I even started checking batteries and got some fresh air to make sure it wasn't anything like weird CO2 poisoning. I ended up going to bed and the feeling was gone the next morning. Nothing weird has happened since. The only other thing is a couple weeks later, I was recounting the experience while on the phone and the knocks started again, though this time they didn't last all day and weren't accompanied by any other weird phenomenon. Still not sure of any explanation for it, but maybe it was just all in my head. Super freaky though. Even now it's a bit chilling recounting this again. Case notes for file 1318. A day of disquiet when reality unraveled. You know, what if it was your own mind that was sending out tendrils of energy that were making things fall over? Maybe it wasn't some other spirit, and I go to that place because in the future, you started having visions through your mind that was interpreting future information. My guess is people whose brains are capable of interpreting that in future buffered reality information, they're capable of a lot of other things too. I like to think of the X-Men, where there's mutations that are not always apparent and not always necessarily useful, but some are truly useful. And of course, these mutations have to be boundaried within the laws of physics, but who's to say we know everything that is possible? I'm not prepared to say that. Maybe it's just your mind that was almost spazzing out, unable to function, to ride the bicycle that you were slowly learning that you had access to. Extremely powerful, if the case. Creepy file number 127, written by ABC, Ipida, The Window Riddle in Progreso, Yucatan. A few years back, around Christmas or New Year's, I stayed with my family at a beach house Airbnb in Progreso, Yucatan. When we got there, the owner was showing us the house and explaining how stuff works. Then she showed us how to close the windows, which each had a very strong interior cover, similar to storefront curtain shields, and told us to make sure to close them every night before going to bed. She told us it was for storm protection, but to close it just to be sure. We didn't think much of it at the time, but still made sure to close them during the night. Now, I don't remember if it was the first or second night there, but one of those nights, my brother and I were sleeping. We stayed in the same bedroom, and sometime in the middle of the night we were woken up by a loud banging from outside one of the windows. They were several bangs at a time, then stopped for a few seconds, and then banging again. It went on for a few minutes. As you can imagine, we were a bit freaked out by it, and we didn't know if we should open the curtain shield or not, to see what was knocking on the window. We decided not to open it just in case, and after a few minutes it just stopped. We stayed up a few minutes to calm down and went back to sleep. The next morning, we opened the window to see if anything was visible, but saw nothing. What's weird is that the bedroom was on the second floor of the house, and this particular window was very difficult to get to since there was nothing underneath, and the walls next to it were smooth as it gets, nowhere to grab onto or stand to get to that window. We stayed a few nights in the house, and as you can imagine, we took extra care and made sure we closed every window and shield every night. Notes for the creepy file number 127, The Window Riddle in Progreso, Yucatan. Well, if I had to guess, I would say this is related to some sort of animal that was knocking at the window, maybe a bird or something, because there's no way to climb it. There is no other human that could, unless it was an actual human that brought a ladder just to bang on a storm shield for some random house in the middle of nowhere. It isn't impossible. People are crazy and weird, but it just doesn't seem very likely to me. So I would guess a type of animal that did this. Still creepy though. I would not have opened the window myself. And now time for the quote of the day. I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by. Douglas Adams. I actually connect a lot with this quote because while I am a meticulous person, and I do set my own schedule, it's one thing where people who work from home or are their own boss or run a YouTube channel in this case, technically I can work whenever I want. There's no necessary, as long as I follow my own self-imposed schedule where I upload 5 times a week, and also the horror story on Sundays and the weekly compilation. As long as I get all of that done, I just work whenever I want to, but I still tend to confine myself in specific blocks, which days I work, which days I don't. Otherwise it feels like I work every day, which is weird, but still, I'm human like everyone, and I have days where I procrastinate. I just say, I don't want to do anything at all. I don't want to edit, I don't want to record, I don't want to do anything. Today was actually one of those days, but I still did it anyways because I just want to have it done. It's funny because I love what I do, but no matter what it is you do, even if you enjoy doing it, if you feel like you have to do it, there's a little rebel in your mind that says, I don't want to. It's like a brat that just says, no, just because. You have to fight against that part of your mind sometimes, that little brat, lock it up. Say, no, you're not the boss of me, I'm the boss of me. Seems to work, I guess. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.